Okay, so in the meanwhile, thank you everyone for joining this webinar. This is the second webinar of the R.I.S.To.VET project, but we also had webinar 0 on April with regard to an introduction of the project. So we have provided an overview on the contents of the project, on its objectives, on the activities. And so we have met for the first webinar on tourism today and so tourism market needs as well as sustainable development. And we had the opportunity to have Maria Luisa from CONET. Then we are going to have this second webinar today on the topics of sustainable tourism and authenticity, tourism image, and promotion. And this is the second webinar out of 3 because on the 7th of June there will be the third and last webinar of this cycle in the R.I.S.To.VET project framework. And today we will have CONET and Via Via, which are 2 associations which are part of our consortium, talking about sustainable tourism. The previous time we have talked a lot about sustainable development, so this could be an occasion to also improve our knowledge on sustainability. And sustainability adapted to the touristic markets. And then we will have Visa Scola presenting contents from a module that we have prepared for the learning platform on authenticity, tourism image, and promotion. So I would like to give the floor to Maria Luisa or Isabel. I don't know who wants to start.
I can probably start, as I am going to present the first 2 units of the module, and then I can give the floor to Isabel, if you agree, Isabel. Last time, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Last time we talked a lot about what sustainability is, what sustainable development is, and today we are going to go more in depth about what sustainable tourism is. As last time, last time we closed the webinar with a fast overview about the idea of and the concept of regenerative tourism. Before analyzing the idea of sustainable tourism more in general and about all the approaches to sustainable tourism, I would like again to share a Padlet and to have your idea about what sustainable tourism is, because actually it's not very easy to define sustainable tourism. There are different approaches, and we will try, Isabel and I, we are going to try to give you an overview about all these approaches. But first of all, I would like to share the Padlet and have your idea about what sustainable tourism is. I put the link in the chat, and we can maybe take 3 or 4 minutes for sharing ideas about that. I will share the Padlet. I will share my screen with the Padlet, so we can have an idea about that all together. Very, very nice appreciation and thankfulness for being a guest. That's very nice, I think. So we have a few definition of sustainable tourism: environmentally friendly, loving the place to which we are traveling, care for the nature and cultural heritage, a touristic practice which respects people, cultures, and environment, as well as local economic features. Tourism in close touch with nature. I think that all. Would you please close your microphones, everybody? Okay. I thank you very much. I think all these definitions are correct, but as sustainable development is a complex concept, as we have seen 2 weeks ago, sustainable tourism is quite complicated as well. I will share my presentation, and in this training path we decided to focus on different aspects and approach of sustainable tourism, focusing on the 4 dimensions of sustainability we have seen 2 weeks ago. So culture, society, economy, and environment. Because sustainable tourism needs to touch each one of these 4 dimensions. I will start focusing on sustainable environment. In a way, sustainable environment is the easiest dimension of sustainable tourism, the easiest to focus on, the easiest to measure, the easiest to face, because it has to do with environmental impact, which is something that has been studied really in depth by natural and social scientists, because an environmental impact is any change to the environment, whether positive or negative, so we can have a positive impact on the environment as well as a negative impact on the environment. And it is a result of activities, products, and services, but also it is it could be also the result of natural events. Let's think about a earthquake, for instance. It has obviously an environmental impact, and it is a natural impact. In this training path, obviously, we are focusing in particular on human environmental impact, because we are talking about human activities. Environmental impact is evaluated and measured through the life cycle assessment, that is a methodology that evaluates and analyzes the environmental impact at all stages of the life cycle of a product or service. That is a very important concept, because any activity, any product could be analyzed through this methodology in each stage of its life. And also the European Union developed different tools in order to analyze different kinds of products and services. And that is a very important step for, in general, for each product or services, and in particular for tourist services. So low impact and ecotourism is one of the approaches of sustainable tourism. Instead of, it focuses in particular about the environmental impact of the tourism activities, and it is defined as responsible. I read because it is a quite, I mean, it's a shared definition that has been developed by different organizations and also NGOs in the last few decades. So, low impact tourism is responsible travel to natural areas that conserves the environment, sustains the well-being of the local people, and creates knowledge and understanding through interpretation and education of all involved. But as we said last week, the idea of, and as it is quite clear from the definition of the environmental impact, sustainable tourism as responsible travel, as I already said before, is not enough. Last 2 weeks ago, we talked about the idea of regenerative, of regeneration, and in particular about regenerative tourism. The idea of regeneration is that preserving is not enough, is that activities and people should have a positive impact on the areas where the tourism activities are developed. So the standard of sustainability as preservation is not enough for regenerative tourism, but the regeneration means that this should have also a positive impact. For this reason, it is necessary to apply different tools, in particular in terms of measure and evaluation of each activity. We don't really have the time to go in depth about all these tools. You can find them on our training path, on the website of the project, and on the e-learning platform. But the idea is measuring and analyzing each stage and each part of the tourism activity in order to measure the impact, and and also to analyze the product and services, not only in terms of financial benefits, but also in terms of as I said, impact on the region, on the area where the tourism business is developed. And as we said 2 weeks ago, regeneration is something that is always evolving, is a process. It's something that you can't just measure at the very beginning. It's something that you need to assess, to evaluate day by day, and you need to really keep track of how the impact of the business is evolving in time. This is in our training path. You can find also some case studies and some examples. One of the most interesting examples about sustainable tourism and about low impact tourism is the slow food movement. I am very sorry for the picture in Italian, but the slow food movement was born in Italy, and the most part of the materials you can find on the web is in Italian. I'm very sorry about that. But the idea of slow food is focusing on the origin of the food you eat, and but it's not only a matter of where the food is produced, but also a cultural matter. It's also a matter of giving value to the food traditions, giving value to traditional ways of producing and consuming food. This is at the heart of the slow food movement, and it's something that is very in a very close relation with the idea of sustainable and regenerative tourism. This is, I mean, the idea of slow food is really the bridge, creates the bridge about the environmental dimension and the cultural dimension of sustainability. 2 weeks ago, we said that this project was born starting from a few considerations about how the tourist market is evolving in the last few decades. Actually, tourists today are often looking for something real, something authentic, something local. I mean, what is something that is really local. This trend has been developing also thanks to the sharing economy, thanks to the sharing economy tools, because, for instance, Airbnb lets you live in real houses, real flats, in the real places where local people live. And this is just an example about a trend about authentic tourism. But what is the link between authentic tourism and sustainable development? As we said, the cultural dimension about sustainable development has to do with the respect and the value to give to the local culture and the local heritage, the cultural heritage of a place. So it is possible and important to develop tourism businesses that, on the one hand, respect cultural local heritage, and on the other hand can also make the most out of it, because it's something that tourists really look for, tourists really want. And an example of that is the experiential tourism. Actually, experiential tourism in a way has always existed, because instead of just visiting, people have always wanted to discover and experience the place that they visit. But it's a trend that is always growing today, and that has to do with the personal engagement. The idea of being personally involved, and it's something that has a close link with sustainable tourism, because if tourists feel really and personally involved in the places they visit, it's much more easy and also requested by the tourists themselves to engage them also in the preservation of the environment, in the preservation of cultural heritage, and so on. I think that it's late, that I took 5 minutes for 5 minutes more than expected, so I think that I will stop here and I will give the floor to Isabel.
Thank you, Maria Luisa. I will also share my presentation with you.
Thank you, Maria Luisa, for providing this overview on sustainable tourism. I guess it is very useful.
Can you see my screen now? I think so, huh?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Then it's my turn. Thank you, Maria Luisa, for introducing us to this sustainable tourism. It's indeed a journey which involves a lot of terms and a lot of ideas. I work at the Via Via Tourism Academy. That's a Belgium non-profit organization in the Joker Via Via network. Joker is a sustainable tour operator for more than 50 years. So let's talk about sustainable society to start with. That's the next item in the module, in the training. And yeah, we talked about sustainable tourism, and a lot of items already popped up that it should be good for nature, but also good for people. So to take into account what is important for people. So what is a socially sustainable tourism? This should be, it should generate financial benefit for the local people. That's what has already been said in the definition before. Socially sustainable tourism also should help raising awareness about both social and environmental issues. Tourists can experience these issues actually when they are visiting the place. And it should also recognize the rights of the local people and in that way contribute to their empowerment so that the local people you visit can get stronger because you visit them. And that way you can also promote the multidimensional ethics of a sustainable development in the whole way. So low impact tourism, ecotourism, slow tourism, a lot of terms that have already been mentioned by Maria Luisa in the previous webinars as well. They are a bundle of criteria and principles. It's not only in order to minimize your negative impact on a certain place where you go to, but also turning this process of tourism into positive outcomes for the place you visit, for the local people and for the local community as a whole. So socially sustainable tourism should actively promote an exchange between both visitors and the hosts, and in that way search for a more conscious way of living and caring for the ecological systems and also the spaces where these people live. We talked about slow tourism already, and Maria Luisa mentioned the term slow food. That's part of this idea behind the slow tourism. So these socially sustainable ways of doing tourism can be defined by several items. For instance, the slow tourism. It means that you do not hop from one hotspot to another, take a picture and move on, but that you enjoy the rhythm, that you move into the rhythm of your journey and take it as a whole. So for instance, it's also walking, it's also taking the bike. It's really an unhurried way of traveling. And it also involves, of course, things like the slow food. Visiting small villages instead of the big cities, staying in homestays and family accommodations and not the big hotel things. So a lot of things that are possible there. Then we also have the community-based tourism. This focuses on the empowerment, real empowerment of the local people, that they have the full ownership and also the management of what's happening in the tourism sector in their community. In that way, you can ensure that economic benefits actually remain local and that visitors can enjoy an authentic experience. That also has been explained by Maria Luisa already, both in terms of cultural and natural heritage. So that way, as a tourist, you can really have an added value to the place you visit, and you're sure that the money you spend, because that's what it's all about, really goes to the local people, to the community that you visit. And in that way, it will also protect the cultural identity of the country or the place you visit and the natural environment. And in that way, you have a positive added value on their economy and their social regeneration. Okay, so why should we focus on an inclusive and an accessible tourism? Because not for all people, tourism is very accessible. That's also part of sustainable tourism. Is it actually accessible for all people? Is it not only for the rich people? Because tourism is often an exclusive phenomenon. The possibility for pleasure, for traveling, is a lot of times reserved for the privileged middle and upper classes. But that's not a very good idea of the whole world. So there are also many inequalities in tourism based on gender, on age, on disabilities, race, ethnicity, origin, religion, and economic status, as I said. So a lot of inequalities, a lot of opportunities or lack of opportunities in the tourism sector. So to make it inclusive and accessible is also part of this sustainable tourism thing. The picture you see here, I would like to explain. Discover the Unseen, for instance, is a city tour in London, a walking tour, not by the classical guides of the city, but by people who don't have a home. They are homeless, they live on the street, or they used to live on the street, and they show you the city from their point of view, and it's a completely different point of view than the classical guide tours that you will find in a city like London, for instance. So it's an eye-opener for you as a tourist to visit the city in a different way. And of course, it's also for these people who are homeless or used to be homeless to earn some income and to tell about their story. So a very important, inclusive and accessible tourism way of doing tourism. This inclusive tourism focuses on widening access, as I said, for marginalized people, not for the richest upper classes, both as producers and consumers of tourism. As I said, these guides, they are producers of tourism and not the common ones. And also we as a tourist of other people can, as a consumer, experience this kind of inclusive tourism. But of course, it implies to overcome physical and socio-cultural and also economic barriers to make it possible that all kinds of people can have access to tourism. So inclusive tourism can be defined as a kind of transformative tourism in which marginalized groups are engaged in this ethical production and also in the consumption of tourism and of sharing the benefits both for visitors and for locals. On the next slide, I talked a little bit about equality, but that's pretty important to take into account the difference between equality and equity. Equality means to give everyone the same support and exactly the same resources, as you can see in the first picture. On the left side of this picture, the 3 identical boxes are given to 3 different people of different heights. But as you can see, this is an equal distribution of resources. However, it fails to consider that the tallest person doesn't really need the box and that the smallest person, actually, he needs 2 boxes. So that's equity. Equity means that everyone gets the support that they need. The resources are distributed based on the specific needs of this person or of this social group and individuals. So that's an important difference to take into account. Inclusion in tourism can be reached only by the collaboration of different stakeholders and by adopting an intersectional approach. That's again a difficult word. How to explain this? It actually means that people can fall into different categories of inequality, let's say. There are different backgrounds. There are different aspects of people's identities that can contribute to the fact that they are discriminated or that they don't have access to the tourism that we want. The intersectionality recognizes that when an individual belongs to these different marginalized categories, let's say, there is an additional effect of even more discrimination and less access to the tourism. Example, for a Black disabled woman, it will be much harder to find work or to find decent work in the tourist sector or in any other sector, because there are different factors that need to be taken into account considering her specific situation. And on this topic, you can find a lot of more information in this TED Talk by Kimberly Williams-Greenshaw. You see her picture here. I put the link in the PowerPoint as well, and you can also find the link in the manual. So if you want on the e-learning platform, so if you want more information on this and also on the other teams, you can listen to her. The next part of the e-learning platform is the sustainable economy. This is a very broad part, so I don't have the time to go through all of it. So we chose some of these items to focus a little bit more on. So in the manual, you can find information on all these items that you can read right now. What I will focus upon today is the circular economy and the donut economy. Because one of the key drivers of a sustainable economy is the concept of building a circular economy. In the explanation that Maria Luisa already gave you very often also saw a circle. Well, this circle comes back, of course, in the circular economy, and it focuses on reducing waste and at the same time ensure that raw materials, that natural capital and energy are used as efficiently as possible. And to explain this a little bit more, I don't know if you can read it all roughly. The most used approach in the circular economy definition is the 3R approach. 3 words starting with the letter R. The first one is reduce. As I already said, circular economy focuses on reducing the use of raw materials, minimize as much as possible, because we take and we take and we take from the earth. But it takes a long time to recover, that the earth needs to recover and reproduce these natural materials again. Then we make something out of it in the production phase. We use it in the green pipeline, and then most of the times the things we have produced and we used goes into disposal. We throw it away, and there's the challenge to close the loop and to go into production and use again with the materials we already have. So without using new materials, we can use what we already have to reinvent new things and use what we already have. The second word is reuse. You can also find this in this inner circle. Instead of throwing things away, it's important to think about reuse of certain stuff. It's not always easy because, let's say, a cell phone, a smartphone, it's composed of several raw materials. When it's broken, most of the times it's really difficult to repair it, because it's all glued together and it's not easy to just replace one of the items inside. So that's in this circular economy, we need to think about new ideas of design so that it makes easier to reuse stuff and to reuse the materials that are inside, for instance, a smartphone. And the last word, the third one, is recycle. You can also find it within in the circle. What we cannot use anymore, it needs to be possible to recycle it and do something else with it. So these are the 3 main words, let's say, in the circular economy to close this gap and to make sure that all these valuable raw materials stay in the loop. Now, how can we do this in terms of tourism, for instance? Well, when you're traveling or when you're on a journey, most of the time you have a lot of single-use plastics like water bottles. Well, this is easy to replace by just a reusable water bottle, for instance. So even in very small things, you can already make a big difference also in the tourism sector. And again, in the tourism sector, if you are a supplier, for instance, you can, as a hotel manager, for instance, or a guest house, you can make concrete agreements with the suppliers, with your suppliers, and talk about this single-use plastic that, for instance, you don't want these small shampoo bottles in your hotel or guest rooms, but think of doing this in another way. Also, camping material, for instance, is a nice one and easy to do. If you go camping, most of the time you don't do it every day, so you need specific hiking material. You need to buy it, it costs a lot of money, and in the end it ends up in your closet or somewhere. Then it's easier and more convenient to rent it, for instance, that you just rent it for one trip and then later on someone else can use it again. And my last slide is about the donut economics. Again, a circle, so it's quite popular in the sustainable economy things. The donut economy model has been defined by the economist Kate Raworth, and it can be described as a breakthrough, actually, a breakthrough alternative to growth economics. In our classical economics, we focus on growth, but this growth is not unlimited. We also always use these raw materials, as I said, but there is an end to a lot of raw materials. So we need to close the loop and go look at our growth in a different way. And she represents this economic growth or this economic way of thinking in a donut scheme. And in the inner ring, the green ring, the social foundation, sets the minimum need for human beings to lead a good life. That goes for income, for food, a certain level of housing, education, social equity, all of these things that are defined based on the Sustainable Development Goals. So that is the inner social foundation circle. If we are not attaining these standards and we have a shortfall in this social foundation, then we find ourselves in the inner circle. And on the other way, there is this ecological ceiling. So at the outer ring represents the ecological ceiling, and that is defined by scientists as well, that have clearly defined how far we can go. And if we cross a certain line, then we are not doing good for our planet. So there are specific planetary boundaries actually we cannot cross, because then we go to the thing of climate change, to air pollution, loss of biodiversity, freshwater withdrawals, all these things. It means that we overshoot the capacity of our Earth. And in the middle of it, in the green circle, you can read at the safe and just space for humanity. So as long as we stay in those two boundaries, as well as the shortfall on our social foundation and the overshoot for the ecological planetary boundaries, we are in a perfect circle, actually, without waste, without excessive damage to the environment. And that's the place we should act as human beings. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. And thank you.
I hope I did not take too much time.
No. It was super interesting. So thank you for providing us all this information.
You're welcome.
And I hope also the participants appreciated your explanation. Now I would give the floor to Joanna. In the meanwhile, I will tell the participant that right after Joanna's presentation, I will send you a link to a Google form for the evaluation of the webinar. So I would like to kindly ask you to fill into the survey to provide us information about the quality of this output and about your satisfaction on the contents of the webinars. So, Joanna, if you are ready.
Yes, I think I'm ready. If something will be wrong, please correct me. So the first unit in Module 4, it's about developing a locally rooted tourism. So what is it? The local routing refers to making the fullest possible use of the potential of resources in a given area so that all players, so all organizations were able to benefit companies and could more easily face competition from other areas or economic adversity in terms of the general market. So also it may refer to being embedded in a particular cultural code of a place or region. So in addition, it fits into the specific physical conditions of a place. So The tourism industry does not function in a special vacuum and needs support in many areas related to catering, transport, cultural or wellness services. So this local routing therefore refers to making the fullest possible use of the potential of resources in a given area. So each organization can benefit. So in our unit, in the unit 4.1, we defined 3 areas like location, network, and strategy. Regarding the location, it's very important to identify attractions. So you can follow it by values of given place, like physical factors such as terrain, climate, accessibility of water reservoirs, accessibility to other natural resources, but also elements of the social, economic, or administrative system. The next important thing is a tourism subsystem that is created by attractions or resources, accessibility, public equipment and facilities, as well as by tourist supply. Another very important thing for location are features that influence on the attractiveness of the place. So we have 3 types, like natural, human modified, and human made. And a very important and very known in the last several months, heritage. So this is everything that can be passed on the future generations, including natural, cultural, and intangible goods. So as you can see, this is a classification of the tourist attraction figure based on R.I.S.To.VET. As we mentioned, so you can see that all of these things go to be very important regarding the location. So what is also important is to build a network. The local tourism business should build relationships with other businesses in the area and should become independent of seasonality. Cooperation makes the local community more independent, often striving even for self-sufficiency. And also local and close cooperation often contributes to an increase in attractiveness when individual members, owners of individual companies recommend their services, extending their own offer with them. And in this part of manual, we also developed 3 areas like network and local community, networking and competition, and tourism cluster. I am going to skip a little bit because of the time. So this is like very briefly described what we put in the network. The next thing is a strategy. So this is another part of this unit. So there are several strategy objectives. It's only just a piece of what we have put in the manual. But when creating a strategy for locally rooted small businesses, it's good to stick to few guidelines. So your business was well known. So leave a positive impression. Take care of your customer by providing excellent service, simple communication, being positive, being aware of what we can recommend. So there are several other things that are very important to develop a good strategy for your business. And also we give in the manual some tips on implementation of the strategy. So an idea for the uniqueness of the company, a definition of priorities, a long-term development concept with specific ways of achieving them. We give also a definition of the direction in which the company will be heading in the coming years, but also how the company will focus on its most important problems. So this is unit 4.1, and now I am going to present you the second part of this unit.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this is the value proposition of locally rooted tourism product. A very important thing is being authentic. Authenticity is almost automatically assigned to a locally rooted tourism product. So in relation to tourism, with which the concept of trances and superficiality of contact is inextricably linked, it's not so easy to define. Nevertheless, when we as entrepreneurs wishing to operate on the local tourism market, bind the fate of our company to the local community, the existing but also changing natural resources of a given place, we should consistently create a story and construct experiences having our potential or current customer at the center of the design process. So how can we do this? So regarding the authenticity, we described 4 areas: folklore, transferred authenticity, gentrification of tourism, and authenticity versus privacy. So also, I am not going to discuss all these parts of the subchapter. So just to make you more curious to get to the manual and to platform that we have developed in the project. So I will go to the next part. Photos, a very important thing that is needed to develop our company, especially in the field of tourism, and we can find out more about the role of images in tourism, about reinforcing a sense of authenticity. We can find some information about the use of color schemes, also where we can find stock photos, a little bit more about food photography and why it is important for our local companies and businesses, and also what kind of hardware and software we can use to collect, to present, to promote our companies. Okay. And the last part is experiences. So here you can read a little bit about the travel modes, about the branded tourism experience, and tourist cliché and theatricalization of space, and also about creating experiences. So this is how briefly Unit 4 is constructed. And if you would like to find out more about this unit, but also the units that were presented before me and during the previous webinar, so I suggest to follow the website, the R.I.S.To.VET on Facebook page, but also to follow the official R.I.S.To.VET website, where you can find the access to the platform. It's still under construction because we are still uploading the materials, but definitely you can find out more there. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Joanna. I would take a little bit of time to ask the participants the possibility to fill into this questionnaire. It is a satisfaction questionnaire that we have prepared to assess the quality of our webinars. So I would ask all the participants to fill into this questionnaire, please. It is essential to us because it will help us improve as well as assess the quality of the contents that we have prepared for the webinars, and also your satisfaction about this experience. So I would like to ask each participant to fill in it. In the meanwhile, we have arrived to the end of the second webinar, and so there's just the last webinar to go, the third one, which will be on the 7th of June, and it will address digital tourism and soft and practical skills. As for the previous webinars, we will have a welcome to the participants and just a sum up of the activities. Then Evelyn from FAWILI will discuss about digital tourism, while me and Nancy from Ergasia will present soft and practical skills, which are mostly focused on the communication skills, also in the professional fields. So it will be an occasion to learn more about digital tourism and communication in general, as well in the touristic field. So please fill the questionnaire, and we can meet for the last webinar on the 7th of June from 4 to 5 p.m. set time. And this will be the last opportunity to join our organization of webinars. So thank you for joining, and see you on the 7th of June, I hope. Thank you. Thank you a lot.
Thank you, Julia, for great moderation of the webinars. We are looking forward to the next one that we will have within next weeks.
Yes.
So I hope that we will have the same number of participants, because it was amazing to have so many people, and that they could join at this time of the day. So thank you, and I would be grateful if you could join us in the next 2 weeks.
Yes, I would also thank the teacher Marinella Restuccia, who helped us a lot in the dissemination of the webinars. So thank you a lot.
See you next time.
See you on the 7th. Thank you.
Okay.